Okay, we're going to look at more indices, and we're going to look at rule 4. I'm just going to keep this short because we don't want to confuse matters by introducing too many rules at the same time. Okay, so let's go over rule 1 again. Rule 1 is when you multiply, you add the powers. Rule 2 is when you divide, you subtract the powers. Rule 3 is when you bring a power to a power, you multiply the powers. Now we're going to introduce a rule 4. A rule 4, this looks complicated, but just go with it, be patient with it. A to the power m over n is the same as the nth root of a brought to the power m. Okay, so it may look a bit confusing, but we'll do a good few examples to show you how this one works. Okay, example 1. Example 1, we're going to evaluate 8 to the power 2/3. Okay, so the bottom number goes down here and the top number goes there. Okay, so the bottom number goes down there, the top number goes up there. Okay, so that means that I can rewrite that as, well, the bottom number goes down here and the top number goes up there. So it's the cube root of 8 all squared. Alright, now we're now looking for the cube root, so that's the square root. Okay, now the square root doesn't show you a number, the number's actually there, it's 2, but that's called the cube root, and that's the 4th root, and that is the 5th root. Now if you think about the square root of 16, the square root of 16 is 4, and that's because 4 times 4 will give you 16. Okay, the square root of 25 is 5, and that's because 5 times 5 gives you 25. The square root of 100 is 10, and that's because 10 times 10 is 100. The square root of 36 is 6, and that's because 6 times 6 is 36. Now if I was then to say, well, what is the cube root of 8? Well, the cube root of 8 is 2, and that's because 2 times 2 times 2 is equal to 8. So 2 times 2 is 4, times it by 2 is 8, so the cube root of 8 is 2. I have to say, what's the cube root of 27? Cube root of 27 is 3, because it's 3 times 3 times 3 is equal to 27. 3 3s are 9, times it 3 is 27, so it's whatever you multiply 3 times together to give, that'll be the cube root. If I said what's the cube root of 125, the cube root of 125 is 5, and that's because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Okay, so if we were to then take it a bit further, what would be the 4th root of 16? Well, the 4th root of 16 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. 2 2s are 4, times it by 2 is 8, times it by 2 is 16. Okay, let's just remind ourselves of this rule. 8 to the power m over n is the nth root of a to the power m. So that number goes there, that number goes there, and that number goes there. So it's the cube root of 8 to the power 2. Now the cube root of 8, what's the cube root of 8? That's 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So that bit in there is 2, and I still need to square it, and 2 squared, 2 times 2, that's 4. Let's try another example, example 2. Okay, this time we're going to evaluate 27 to the power 2/3. Okay, so that number goes down there, that number goes up there, so that's going to be the cube root of 27 all squared. Now, let's first of all find the cube root of 27, take one step at a time. What's the cube root of 27? Well, that's the number when you times it by itself and then times it by itself again, you get 27, that's 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times it by 3, that's 27. So it's 3, and then I need to do 3 squared, and 3 squared is 3 times 3, that's 9. Now let's say you weren't sure that the cube root was 27, what would you do? You would just try a number and see what happens. So if I tried 2, it doesn't work, because that gives me 8. If I tried 4, that doesn't work, because that gives me 64. If I tried 5, that doesn't work, because it gives me 125. But if I try 2, if I try 3 rather, 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. So the cube root of 27 is 3, and then it's 3 squared, 3 squared, 3 times 3, that's 9. Okay, example 3. Example 3, we're going to go for 16 to the power 3 quarters. Okay, that number there, that number there. So that's going to be the 4th root of 16 brought to the power 3. So the 4th root of 16, that's a number that you multiply by itself, and multiplies by itself again, and you get 16. What's that? That's 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4, times it by 2 is 8, and times it by 2 is 16. So that's 2 cubed. 2 cubed, what's that? That's 2 times 2 times 2, and that gives me to your time 8. Okay, example 4. Example 4, we've got 100 to the power 3 over 2. Okay, so that number down there, that number up there, that's going to be the square root of 100 cubed. What's the square root of 100? That's 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. And then I need to cube it. 10 cubed, what's that? Oh, 10 times 10 times 10, take your time, and that is 1000, example 5. Okay, example 5, we're going to have 16 to the power 5 over 2. That number down there, that number up there, so it's going to be the square root of 16 brought to the power 5. What's the square root of 16? Well, it's 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. And then it's 4 to the power 5. So it's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. Now this looks as if it's going to be really difficult, but you just need to take your time. Okay, 4 times 4 is 16. And then I times that by 4. 4 6s 24, 4 didn't carry 2. Okay, 4 1s are 4 plus the 2 is 6, that's 64. So I've got now 64 and I need to times that by 4. 4 4s are 16, 6 didn't carry 1, 6 4s are 24 plus 1 is 25. And then I need to times that by 4. 256 times 4, 6 4s are 24, 4 didn't carry 2, 5 4s are 20 plus a 2 is 22, 2 didn't carry 2, 2 4s are 2, 2 4s are 8 plus 2 is a 10, and that's going to be 1024. Okay, probably bigger numbers than we'd get in an exam question, but let's try another one. Okay, next one, let's go 8 to the power 4/3. Okay, that number down there, that number up there, so it's going to be the cube root of 8 brought to the power 4. What's the cube root of 8? So it's 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And then it's 2 to the power 4. What's that? Well, that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 2s are 4, times it by 2 is 8, times it by 2, that is 16. Let's try one more. Okay, let's go for 32 to the power 2/5. Okay, 32 to the 2/5. That number goes down there, that number up there, so that is the 5th root of 32 brought to the power 2. What's the 5th root of 32? Well, that's the number when you multiply it by itself 5 times, you get the number, so that's 2. Because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 32. 2 2s are 4, times it 2 is 8, times it 2 is 16. And times it by 2 again gives you 32, so that's going to be 2. And then it's 2 squared, 2 2s are 4. Okay, so now you're going to try these ones.